Hello, ladies. I am glad to have you tuning in. Tonight's presentation is a slash Q&A where I didn't get any submissions on questions. I had one sent in during the week, which was very specific, which I addressed. And I really wanted to offer you some bonus material. So I put together some info on caulking like a pro. So we're going to tackle a little bit of caulk and a little bit of grout because these are significant issues that are just annoying and frustrating and are about the cleanliness of your home and the aesthetics of your home. So let's dive a little bit deeper from baseboards to bathrooms. So what I have here is, next slide. We're going to talk about a few things. One is the colors of these products because there is a lot of choices. We're also going to talk about a few specialty products that you may not even know exist for some issues you have. And then we're also going to talk about a few tools and a couple hacks so that you can get this done right and get it done well. So moving on, let's talk about grout versus caulk because they're two different animals and they need to be handled very specifically. So keep in mind, I mentioned this in the last Q&A that we had, that grout is a cement-based product. It's between your tiles on the flat surfaces, whether it's the walls in the shower or it's on the floor. So the grout is between the tiles. The grout is based in a cement product, so it's hard and it fixes itself tightly between the tiles, keeps everything safe, and keeps them basically watertight. So it is bleachable. When mildew and mold develop on your grout lines in your shower, you can spray them with a grout cleaner or even take pure bleach on a toothbrush and scrub the heck out of it and get it cleaner. So that is a benefit to the grout because it is so scrubbable. Now, it can last for decades if you take care of it and it was installed properly. Now, a few things about grout, though, is that if it starts to crumble, if you find that the grout between the tiles is crumbling and loosening, that is a huge red flag that you need to get it addressed as soon as possible because the grout is keeping water from getting behind the tiles and seeping into the substrate, which should be a special board called cement board or a green board, special drywall, and then causes mold and mildew and lots of damage. So if you have loose or crumbling grout, it needs to be replaced. Now, dirty is a whole other animal. Of course, we don't want dirty, mildewy, black grout, but if it's crumbling, it's a big issue, okay? So you're gonna have to deal with that. Now, caulk, on the other hand, if you look in the slide, is the gummy stuff that is between the perpendicular joints. It runs along where the tile meets the tub or the tile meets the floor. Now, the grout being very hard, the caulk is gummy and it doesn't last as long. All of these caulk products will say, you know, you have a 7 to 10 year life. Well, I don't buy it. I think you typically get about 5 years out of a caulk. So keep in mind, it's at the perpendicular joints because there's movement. There's movement in the floor and the wall. There's movement in the tub when you get in and you put weight in it and the tiles. So that's why it's there, because it can stretch and give a little bit. Now, you can find them silicone-based or latex-based. Ideally, you'll want silicone in bathrooms because it's more water and moisture resistant, but we'll go into that a little bit more. It is stretchy and gummy. It is hard to clean because once mold starts to crawl into the seams of your caulk lines, it tends to go a little wild and you can't really get rid of it, okay? So that's important. And like I said, it's only gonna last a few years. So let's dive a little deeper into each of these, but that's just a surface summary because a lot of people get grout and caulk mixed up and how you handle each of those, okay? Now, let's talk about the color selection for both of them. Now, for caulks, okay, for your caulk products that come in a tube like this one, you're going to see caulk comes in clear and almond, biscuit, and white. those are the standards. Now, depending on what type of caulk you're using, it could be an exterior caulk, and you can find them in some darker colors to blend in with siding or stone and things like that. But typically you're going to find clear, almond, biscuit, and white. To be honest with you, I don't know the difference between almond and biscuit. They basically look a beige color to me. So you just want to read the labels and see which color you think matches your particular, typically a bathroom setting. Now, in the grouts, in the slide you see down the bottom, the rainbow palette there, those are grout color selections. And you'll see that grout can come in so many different colors. The idea is you want to pick a grout that blends well with your tile, but also one that'll stand up to dirt. So I say go for a warm brown, darker grout, so it doesn't need as much cleaning. So, and I'm telling you that from experience. We did a very light beige grout on the floor, and I came to regret it. So I would definitely go for a darker grout next time. But understand that there's that big rainbow of colors. And if you go into the home center, there's a display card hanging in the section where the grout is. And if you open it, it shows you a little tiny sample of all the colors. And they have a peel off section. So you can peel it off and actually set it between two tiles so you can see what the actual grout line would look like between tiles. So it's pretty clever. If you go into a flooring store particularly, they have a whole little palette of these colors, and they're like little plastic strips, and you can take them out and lay them between tiles. So you can truly visualize what that color grout will look like with your tile product. So that's important when you're making choices. So moving on, let's talk about tools. Now, these are some basic tools for both grouting and caulking. We'll start with caulking. You're going to need a caulk gun. Now here I have shown you the Home Depot special. It's about $6. And I want you to notice on this caulk gun, you have a hole right near the middle where you pull on the trigger. You'll notice that there is a hole. And that hole is filled with a little blade. It has a cutting blade built right into the handle, which is great because a lot of people, when they go to open a tube of caulk, will look for a pair of scissors, and they'll practically break that pair of scissors trying to cut the tip off of the caulk tube. The blade is built right into the handle designed to do that for you. So it's super easy. You don't have to go ruining a pair of scissors because you will probably break them trying to do this. So you're going to take your tube of caulk with the plastic nozzle. You're going to put it into the handle and pull on the trigger so that the plastic will get cut inside there. The tip will just fall out of the bottom of the handle. Okay, you've opened the tip of the nozzle. Now, the other feature on the caulk gun is I want you to notice on the underside, there's a little brown or silver stick that you see towards the front of the caulk gun. And the spike that comes out of that caulk gun is designed to go into the open nozzle of the caulk so that you can puncture the seal at the base of the nozzle. A lot of people make this mistake because they don't open the tube properly. There is a seal at the very tip. You cut with the blade in the caulk gun, and then you use the spike attached to the end of the caulk gun to pierce the seal at the base of the nozzle. At that point, when you've hit it in two places, you have opened the tube properly. Then you're going to take your tube of caulk and you're going to lay it into your caulk gun by pulling the plunger all the way back. Now, if you've ever made butter cookies, like spritz cookies for the holidays, or you've done icing, same concept. You're going to load the tube with product. In this case, it's caulk, not icing. And then you're going to squeeze on the handle until the caulk comes out of the tip, okay? Now, I recommend every time you're done applying your caulk, you're going to pull back on this button and pull the plunger back a little bit to relieve the pressure. Because if you use your caulk gun and you squeeze and then you lay it down, it'll continue to ooze because you haven't released the pressure on the back and you make a big mess. So that's important. Now, I want to tell people this all the time, that they should not buy caulk in little handheld tubes. It is very, very difficult for you to squeeze this tube consistently with the same amount of pressure and guide it into a tiny crevice and do it with any amount of neatness. It's a mess. So I find that these tubes are a waste of my time because you can't apply it neatly. You get it everywhere. You're frustrated. So skip the little tube, a handheld tube, and get the tubes or cartridges, as they're called, that fit into the caulk gun. You'll be much happier in the long run, okay? It's just a much smoother application. Now, a few other things that you're going to need for your caulking project are going to be razors. It's important that you have a razor that is a box cutter utility knife style, because you use that to cut into that perpendicular corner of the tub to help release that old caulk, because you have to remove all of the caulk before you put on new. You cannot caulk over caulk. Just accept that. It's a pain, I know, but it won't work well. Now, the other one that I like is a razor that's more of a scraper. And I will use this to scrape along the edge of the tub and along the wall, again, to help get rid of all of the old caulk. So I use both tools. It depends on, you know, which one's working better on a particular angle, but it's important to have both of these handy. Make sure you have a fresh blade, and be careful that you don't go hog wild and you scratch the porcelain on your tub or the ceramic itself, okay? Ceramic's pretty durable, but you can go a little nuts and gouge it. So keep that in mind. So have the two tools on hand. And there is another tool. This is a grout removing tool. Not a big fan of it. I don't think it works that beautifully, but some people like it. And you can kind of gouge and scrape. So I do prefer just using razors. Now, you're going to need a caulk spreader. Typically for me, that's a finger. Some people will find a tool like this handheld one has a little rubber triangle on the end, so you can apply a bead of caulk and then use this to smooth and spread it out. I prefer to use my finger with some paper towels or rags and wipe off the excess. Now, you can at times use painter's tape. You could apply painter's tape to the wall and to the tub, leaving just a tiny section open where you're going to apply the fresh caulk. It's pretty neat, easy way to do it. It just takes a lot of time getting the tape applied. So obviously you need to make sure that your tile and your tub surface are clean and dry so that the painter's tape will adhere. And you want to make sure that you're as neat and level all the way around with your painter's tape so that you can get a nice clean line. All right. Now I have here paper towels and sponge, you know, whatever you want to use to keep your hands clean. Now you can put on a latex glove and use that to smear. I prefer to just use my bare finger. A little bit wet helps, and you can help spread it around. Now, silicone is very, very sticky. So you're going to go through a lot of paper towels. It will eventually wash off, but it might take an hour or two before you get rid of the slimy feel, okay? Now, let's talk about some grout-specific tools. Now, down here at the bottom, I have the grout removal tool listed. Now, there is a kit you can buy. Maybe it's $10. And in the kit is a grout removing blade. To remove grout, you need a diamond blade, okay, because it is a cement product, right? So a regular scraping razor isn't going to cut it, literally. So the grout removal tool comes with a diamond blade, and you can scratch out the grout that is broken and chipped. Now, it doesn't mean you have to take every bit of grout out of your shower, but if you've got a 2-inch area that is crumbly, then you may want to take out 3 or 4 inches so that you can then reapply it and have a nice clean section. So wherever the crumbling ends, you want to go a little wider so you have a clean space, okay? Now, this little kit comes with a grout sponge, it comes with gloves, it comes with the grout removal tool, and it even comes with a standard basic white grout in a tube that you could use to fill in a small area. So you could look for this type of little mini kit for those quick repairs. let's talk about the grout float. That is this little handheld tool at the bottom with the black. A grout float is it's kind of like the sander that I had pointed out to you, but it is rubber. It is literally a pad of rubber on a handle, and that allows you to slide the grout, which is kind of like a peanut butter consistency, into the lines of your tile. And you use it to smooth and spread and get it all mushed into the lines. Real official, get it mushed, but you know what I mean. So that's an important tool to have on hand. I have here a water bottle mister. What I mean is just a spray bottle, but when you are making a grout repair, have you ever seen someone have new cement poured? And the cement contractor will say, we want you to hose it down, you know, once a day for the next few days. There's something about these cement-based products that when you wet them and let them dry, wet them and let them dry, it hardens them. So the same thing with grout. It's a great idea when you have new grout or a repaired grout applied that you mist it down with water for probably 2 or 3, 4 days. Just mist it real good, let it dry. Next day, mist it again and let it dry. It will help harden that repaired grout. Now I have here a grout sponge. And this type of sponge matters. I don't want you using a cellulose kitchen sponge on that grout repair. You really want to get a grout sponge. It is designed, the way it's poured, or it's porous, I should say, it pulls the sand and the grit away and allows for a nice smooth finish. So for a couple bucks, you want to get a specific grout sponge. You're going to need a bucket. You're going to need some distilled water. And I say distilled water because I know this isn't a full class on installing ceramic tile, but years and years ago, like probably 15 years ago, my husband and I installed ceramic tile in our house, and we did put in like this, you know, almond colored grout. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and the grout was bright white. I mean, like brilliant white. And we were panicked because it wasn't supposed to look like that. It looked terrible. Well, what happened was that there was a chemical reaction between our hard water and the grout product. So we had to then go and get another product that we had to mist and rub on with paintbrushes into the grout lines. It was a whole nother step, hours of time. And it did correct it. It altered that chemical reaction. But I've told everyone ever since then, if you're going to do a grout project, use distilled water, because then you know that you are getting the least amount of municipal water minerals in your grout. So it'll make for a little less work. So keep that in mind. Now, let's jump on to a few caulk choices. Now, I'm showing you, I want to show you some products. I also want to show you where you put them, because some people don't always realize you can put caulk in certain places. So let's talk about exterior versus interior. This is really, really important because we often think of caulk as the bathtub, and we think of it for maybe around windows, but there's lots of other outdoor applications as well. So let me talk a little bit about the exterior options. You can have the outside of your doors and windows. You can have gutters. I showed a picture here. If you look up, I guess right along the chimney line, you'll see a seam in the gutter. These are the new gutters that went up on our deck. And our contractor gave us a choice. Did we want a seamless gutter, or were we okay with the less expensive option of a seamed gutter? Now, he put these up, and he knew it was going to rain the next day, and he said, well, let's see how watertight they are. And they're not. And we had a leak. Now, granted, it was a leak in the gutter down into the mulch, so no big deal. But now we know we're going to be using a gutter sealant caulk to make the gutters watertight. Not a big deal because these are first floor gutters that we can access. Now, obviously, it would be a problem if it's up on the second story because you can't get to it so easily. But understand that there is a gutter sealant in a caulk tube. Okay, whether it's a caulk or a sealant, same similar concept. Now, you can also get in a caulk tube a masonry repair. Say you have some cracks in stone or brick at the front of your house. You can buy a exterior quality cement product in a tube that you can use to patch and fill some of the mortar on either brick or stone face. So take a look for that if you have that problem. That's how critters get into your house. That's how drafts and moisture and stuff. So these are things worth considering. Now, interior caulk, there are so many options. Now, there are bathroom, you know, we've got kitchen and bath and plumbing caulks. We have caulk that is called a painter's caulk. And I just had one here. Oh, I put it in my gun. That's why I couldn't find it. This is a painter's acrylic. Such a fabulous product. I want to show you some photos of where you would use that in a minute. But painter's acrylic caulk is a huge product. It is so important to have around the house because it fills in the gaps and cracks between drywall and molding. We're talking about those cracks that you get around your door jambs, your baseboards, windowsills. Ants and drafts love to come and go through those little gaps and cracks. And painter's caulk would be the product to use because it is a simple caulk product that you can use to fill in the line, and it's paintable. Now, if it's going on white baseboards and white trim, you don't even have to paint it, but it is paintable. So it's a fabulous product that I think many of you will be like, what? There is a product to fill in all those cracks along the baseboards? So it really just makes it look finished, and a good carpenter will do that for you at the time of install. If you live in a neighborhood that went up quickly, builder grade, you know, housing, like mine, they didn't do that. So I discovered this product 20 years ago and went around and caulked everything to make it look nice and neat. So we're going to show you some more interior stuff in a minute, but silicone. Silicone-based caulk is a really important product for those watertight applications. If you're talking about an exterior caulk for your windows, and again, they can come in different colors depending on if you want clear, or maybe you want a particular color to match the window trim. Most of us have white trim around our windows, but some people will have colored, and that's important to have. So that's important. Paintable. When you're buying a caulk product, you want to look for a paintable caulk because a paintable caulk will give you the option of blending things in, okay? The paintable option is fantastic because you can use the paintable caulk to fill in the holes of the nails when you're doing trim work. So you'll find a carpenter that will use the painter's caulk not only along that seam, but he'll also put some on his finger and smear them into the holes where the finished nails went to attach your trim work. Okay, so you can use that to cover up the nails, or you can use a wood putty, but I prefer using the painter's acrylic because it's quick, it's easy. You'll smear it in, take a sponge, wipe off the excess, and then you'll hit it with a little touch-up paint and it'll blend right in. Okay, so other specialty caulking, I've got a few here. One that I want to show you is really cool. This is a caulk, which is a crossover between caulk and grout. Now, I told you before that grout is a cement-based product, whereas caulk is more of a gummy, stretchy product. Well, they've made a grout caulk, and I don't know any other word but calling it a grout caulk, because it is a little bit mix of both. It's not as dry and hard as a grout will end up being, but it's not as soft and gummy as caulk. And it comes in a whole bunch of colors. So for any of you that has a maybe a granite countertop and you've got the little backsplash, well, if you've got, you know, rich, warm colors in your granite or whatever, the last thing you want to be doing is putting a bright white or bright almond caulk against maybe brown or black speckled, you know, countertop. It looks bad, right? But you want to keep the water from getting back into the gaps and cracks where either that 4-inch backsplash of granite, that 4-inch piece, or a full tile backsplash. So where the tile backsplash and the countertop meet, you need to seal it up. So this grout caulk is awesome because it comes in about 20 different colors. So you can find a color that will blend in with your tile and or your granite countertops, so it all looks like it was meant to be. So don't invest in nice counters or a nice backsplash and then put white silicone caulk. Look for the colored caulks and really blend them in. Now, some of the new grout caulks tell you that you can use them in the shower. I'm not sold on using them. I don't know that they are as 100% waterproof as a regular caulk is. So read the packaging, talk to the guy in the aisle. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. If you're going to buy a caulk product, you want to go to the paint counter and confirm with the guy in the aisle there what you're going to use it for, and did you choose the best product off the shelf? Because there's so many options, it's very overwhelming. Now, if you're looking for a grout product, go find the guy in the flooring department, okay? And let them help guide you into the right choice, okay? Now, I also have here weatherizing. There are weatherizing caulks. There are caulks that are specific for your windows and doors, okay? Some of them will tell you different temperature ranges, so it depends on where you're living. Which caulk will hold up to what temperature extremes? Because I know for here, you know, in Philly area, you know, we can have a week of 5 degrees and we can have a week of 100 degrees. So you want to make sure you're getting the right product. Now, I want to talk about adhesives because they come in these tubes, all right? And I love using adhesives in a tube. This one is Liquid Nails. This is one of my go-tos. Liquid Nails is a great product. You can also buy it in a little handheld tube, but again, it's a little more challenging to deal with a handheld. I love putting it into my gun and then I can just squeeze it. So Fuse It is what this one's called, and it really does attach to almost anything. There's another one by Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue also makes a all-purpose construction adhesive, and this one adheres to, oh my gosh, decks, masonry, wet surfaces, wood, flooring, marble, drywall, tub and shower, metal, subfloors, mirrors. You can use it on landscaping. It just goes on and on. It's all weather, it's paintable, really, really versatile product made by Gorilla. So I'm not a big fan of the Gorilla Glue itself, but this construction adhesive is pretty nice. So that's one option. And then keep in mind, if you are doing a mirror project or marble or granite, you don't want to just grab plain old Liquid Nails. You want to look for one that is specific for marble, tile, glass, granite, because those surfaces are not porous. And you want to make sure that you're going to get something that will adhere to a flat, smooth surface. So you be specific in what type of adhesive you're getting and where it's going. Now, I've shared with you we're getting this deck built, and my husband and I are doing the fireplace stone facade. So our contractor framed the fireplace for us. That's going to be out on the deck, and then we're doing the stone front. And there's a specific product we need to use. This one is called Loctite, L-O-C-T-I-T-E. Great product. And again, it is very specific and says it is for exterior use. It attaches to almost any substrate. It is weather tolerable. It can handle extremes. So be picky when you're choosing a caulk or an adhesive product, because you want to make sure it's really designed for your purpose, okay? Because not all caulks are the same, and you want to make sure that if you're going to do it, you can do it right, and you don't have to redo it again, okay? So the other thing that I do love when I'm looking for caulk choices is the longevity. Now, this is a plumbing kitchen bath. This says it's water resistant in 30 minutes. That means you could sprinkle water on it. Doesn't mean it's shower ready. So read the details on the back. It's important. There's also information about humidity levels, temperature, and then it has cure time. The cure time is when is it ready for use, okay? It may be dry in 30 minutes to touch, but they may say 24 hours before you shower. So please read the directions so you don't do it incorrectly. And this one says 10-year mold resistance. Again, I give them 5 to 7 years max. I do like the ones that come with their own cap because it's really nice to be able to use your caulk and put a cap on it and store it away. It's important that you store it in a cool, dry place, not in the garage. It will freeze in the garage. So keep it in a basement or utility area. I actually have a wine rack that I have, and I keep all the tubes of caulk in the wine rack, and it works out beautifully. If you do not have a tube of caulk that came with a cap, I use a extra large electrical cap. You know, they come in orange and yellow and red, or the big, you know, electrical caps. I put an electrical cap on the top of the tube, or I will put a baggie over it and some rubber band. You want to keep that tube of caulk airtight as possible before you store it, so that when you go to need it again, it might still be in good shape. How long? Sometimes they'll last a few months, but I wouldn't expect them to hold up more than, say, 9 months. Depends on how you store it. You might be able to get a year out of it, but sometimes not. So those are just some of my favorite adhesives and caulks and things that I use around my own house and at clients' house on a regular basis. So let's move on to, let's see, it doesn't want to advance. There we go. Where to caulk. And a lot of people don't realize all of the places that they can be using caulk to seal up their house and make sure it is watertight, air efficient, and preventing mold and mildew issues down the road. So the first picture, I want you to notice, you see my drill. This was me drilling into my house last week for us to run an electrical line, actually a cable line. Now I want you to notice on the right, you will see what is a gas line. There's a red handle, that's a gas line. Then I have the drill hole. And then in the gray rectangular box, this is where electrical wires are coming out of the house, going out to the deck. You'll notice that the top of that is caulked. You don't want water getting into where the utilities are coming and going from your house. So wherever the utilities enter and exit your home, it's important that they be caulked and sealed. So take time, you know, in the next couple of weeks and go to the utility area on your home and see, do I have big gaping holes? That's how mice get in. That's how air and drafts get in, and that's how water gets in and causes damage behind the siding into the studs and the framing. So it's important to find a good exterior caulk, get one that matches or clear, and seal up those little gaps and cracks around your utility lines. Now, I have a picture of this shower handle. Now, at the top of your shower, you know, where the handle is, and even on a tub where the tub faucet sticks out, it's really ideal that you use a clear caulk around the top of, actually around the entire circle of this, because you don't want water to get behind the decorative facade of your shower handle and the wall. You don't want the water to seep down between the tile and the shower handle. So in that case, I would use a clear. I would use a clear silicone shower caulk and seal all of that up. Same thing for that tub spout, the spigot, as we call it in Philly, where the tub spout comes out of the wall. That too should be caulked and sealed to prevent water from getting back there, okay? Again, I prefer clear because you don't really notice it. Now, I have a picture down on the left. It is an old avocado tub that I helped one of the chicks out with stripping all of the old caulk away. Now, whoever had lived in this house before she bought it did an absolutely horrendous job. It was probably the worst, messiest caulk job I had ever seen. It was probably an inch up the wall and half an inch into the tub line. They used bright white, and it was just messy. Plus, the mold had built up, and she needed to deal with it. So it's important to notice here 2 areas to caulk. One is that big crack along the tub line and down the side because water can spill out. So you also have to you also have to caulk that line down the side of the tub where the tile meets as well. And then in front of the tub. So it's where the shower wall meets the tub line. It is the side where the tile meets the side of the tub, and the floor where the tub meets the tile floor, whether it's a tile or it's pergo or linoleum, whatever. You want to make sure that you're caulking in front of the tub where it meets the floor because you don't want water to get underneath your flooring and cause rot. Okay? That's important. And then lastly, you see this picture of beadboard paneling. This is a beadboard that was in a home, and you can see at the very base, there's gaps and cracks. I filled that in with the painter's acrylic, and it just was seamless and looked beautiful before I repainted it with a nice fresh coat of white paint. So just a few places around the house where you could be using caulk for better maintenance in your home. Now let's talk about the grout issues. When we're talking about grout, if you see crumbling, if you see sections of missing grout, this is important to deal with. And then you have discolored grout, a little bit different. Now, crumbling and missing grout in the bathroom, okay, meaning the shower or tub, is a big problem because it's going to allow water to get behind and damage the wallboard and the framing, creating mold and mildew. And you won't even know that you've got black mold spewing and growing behind the wall. So anytime you see crumbling and missing grout in the tub area, you want to get on that. Now, if you have it missing on the floor in your kitchen or hallway or wherever, it just doesn't look good, but it's not going to cause damage per se. I can tell you upstairs, I have a few sections, and it's been on my list for months for us to handle, and we just haven't gotten to it because there's always something else that I deem more important at the moment. So I need to make these repairs in my own house, so I get it. Now, you can have discolored grout, meaning something has spilled on it and stained it, or it's just dirt has built up over time. So these are some of the issues that would cause you to want to take a look at the grout repairs. Now, if you have a small section, like I said, in the bathtub that needs to be removed, you get the grout removal kit, and you can remove that, and you can then replace it with the little kit. It's tedious. Removing the old grout is a must. You cannot, like caulk, you can't grout over grout. You need to clear out a section of a couple inches up to where it is nice and tight and firm and solid in its crack. Then you're going to take a dust brush and clean it all out. Make sure you have a nice, clean, open space. Let it fully dry. And then you're going to mix up your grout product, whether you're using a grout repair kit that comes with a premix, or you're going to actually mix up grout yourself to make a repair. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There is a tool if you do not want to sit there and scrape it out with a little hand tool all by yourself because it's tedious. You can use the Dremel. I showed you before the Dremel Multi-Max, one of my absolute favorite go-to tools. You can get it with a grout removal blade. So you put the blade on there and it just zooms right. You hold it into the line and it'll chop up the rest of the crumbling and loose grout so that you have a fresh open space. So consider that tool as an option. Now, when it comes time to make new grout, I mean literally mix up a batch of grout to make your repairs, few things. You're going to need a bucket to mix it. You're going to need, I told you about the distilled water, okay, or bottled water at least. So a bucket, you're going to need water. You're going to need something to mix it up. You can use, if you have a small amount, you can just use a little garden shovel, okay? Again, it's a cement product, so you know you don't want to be using a kitchen spoon. You want to follow the directions on the package for the quantity of water and how they want you to mix it. It matters, okay? There'll be specific instructions that tell you how to mix it, how long to let it sit, and then sometimes you mix it up again. So it varies by company. So read the directions. Now, before you buy your grout, I want you to understand this bag here, this package says sanded grout. And it also lists grout joints from 1/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. So it's important for you to look and understand which grout you're putting back into that crack. This grout is sanded. It means it has a lot of grit in it, and it's rough and crumbly. It's for ceramic tile, a general purpose, okay? And it tells you how wide the grout line can be. If you have porcelain or marble or a soft tile, a soft stone tile, you cannot use sanded grout. You have to use unsanded grout because the sanded grout will scratch the tile. So again, this is why if you've got a repair going on, take photos, go to the guy in the flooring department and say, I need to make these repairs. What's the best products for me to walk out of here with? Because I want to make sure that you're buying the right grout based on the stone that you have, okay? And the line, the width of the gap and all of that. So take heed of those. You could measure the grout lines, take photos, all of that good stuff so that you end up with the right product, okay? That's my little spiel on grout. So you're going to buy it in different colors. Again, if you had a light grout at one point and now your grout basically is a little bit darker because of dirt and age, you can buy a grout that's a little bit darker that might match what you currently have. So you don't replace an area of grout with the same color grout you had, and now that looks nice and clean and everything else looks dirty and dingy around it. So keep that in mind of how much color change has happened and how fresh and clean you can get the old grout. If you have old grout and you want to have it cleaned, there are services. There's one, I believe it's called Sir Grout, and they come out and they do a deep steam cleaning, and it really will clean your grout a lot. So that's an option. You can take bleach products. There's a product called ZEP, Z-E-P, grout cleaner. It works. It's very, very strong smelling. So if you have sensitivities to odors, you would not want to use this. But that's a way to get all of that grout clean before you patch and repair so that the colors don't look so different, okay? Now you're going to take, like I said, a bucket. You're going to follow the directions for mixing with the powder and the water amounts, and you're going to mix it till it's like a peanut butter. Okay, that's the consistency you want, is like a creamy peanut butter. And then you're going to use your grout float, and you're going to use the grout float to mush it into the lines until you have filled in your area. You can mix up, you know, just 2 cups of grout. You're going to have to do a little math till you figure out the water amounts based on the package instructions. But you can mix up just a little bit for repairs. You do not have to mix up an entire box because it comes in big packages, okay? There's really not little small packages of it, okay? So that's my spiel on that. Before I go into next week, let me just, one other thing. After you have put the grout into your lines and you have filled your space, I want you to then let it set for about 15 minutes. And then you're going to take that grout sponge and you're going to wipe away some of the excess. You want to get the grout off the tiles around the area and just leave it filling in the cracks. You're going to wipe several times during that day to get the residue off, okay? You're going to use the grout sponge, bucket of clean water. Just keep wringing it out. You'll pull off the sand as you're doing it. Then at the end of the day, spritz it with the water. Next morning, you may have to wipe it down. It's hazy, and it might be hazy for a few days. You have to keep wiping with the sponge. And then again, second, third, fourth day, spritz it with water, let it dry harder, and let it set. So if you have any more specific questions about making grout repair or something like that, please reach out. It was kind of just an overview of the difference between grout and caulk and how you would make some of those repairs. People have often asked me, when I'm doing when I'm doing caulk, do I pull my grout? Sorry, I always mix the words up. I have to think very clearly. Do I pull the tube of caulk along the edge, creating that bead, okay, or the little snake-like, or do I push it? I prefer to push my caulk along the open gap because I find less comes out and there's less to deal with, less to wipe, and it's just not as messy. I suggest that you practice on a scrap of wood if you can, because it will allow you to get a feel for how much control, how much you have to squeeze that handle, how much comes out. And ideally, you want to open the tiniest hole that you can. I'd rather have less come out and have to go back and add it than have way too much and it's just everywhere, okay? So keep that in mind. If you have any other questions about grouting and caulking projects, shoot me an email. But next week, we are going to be diving into electrical basics. We're going to talk about very simple things, but important things. Bulbs. I can't tell you how many people have had electrical issues because of the wrong bulbs. So we'll talk a few minutes about bulbs. We're going to talk about circuit breakers, how to reset them, how to identify which ones are which, how to reset power if the power is out, and do some troubleshooting before you call a pro, okay? Literally, a few of these tips I'm going to tell you will save you $100 to $150 from having to call the electrician in, okay? I mean, seriously, money-saving tips just because somebody told you how to do this or that and figure something out to reset things. We're also going to talk a little bit about security. I know that a number of you are single and living on your own, divorced, widowed. You know, this is a lot of the women that come to learn, and plus a lot of stay-at-home moms. And I want you to have some better understanding of some security devices you can put in your house that don't require an electrician. So I'll point out a few of those things that will help keep you safe. And we're going to go over the basic wiring of an outlet and a fixture, okay? So we'll get the conversation started on that basic wiring so that you could change a light fixture, just a simple basic fixture, and boost your confidence in terms of dealing with electricity. So if you have any questions from tonight or anything in the past, you know, anything that comes to mind, please shoot me that email to support@DIYHipChicks.com, and I'll be happy to answer your question or integrate it into a lesson if it's a general question that others will benefit from. So thank you guys, and I will see you next week.